What's going on, guys? Matt Manduke here, and this is of course another drone flight. Yeah, I said I'm gator hunting because I'm at a rest stop about 20 miles east of Tallahassee, Florida, and I see these ponds all over the place, and it's hot as hell outside, so I'm like, maybe there's gators, but they're not out sunning themselves, and maybe that's because of the time of day. As you can see right now, it is close to sunset, and I thought the sun was actually really pretty. However, because it's so close to sunset, the lighting for the drone camera really isn't the best. So some of it looks a little blurry and some of it looks a little odd. And I want to pre-apologize for that because you're going to see that. So yeah, there's one of the ponds, and you can see that one's kind of dug out by the rest stop. And I'm looking at it, and I think it looks kind of cool, even though you can tell it's all algae. Now, as you can also tell, the gimbal is working properly, and that's because I remembered that procedure to take the cover off of it before I turn the drone on. The zoom works well, and this is actually the longest flight that I've taken with the drone so far. It's almost 15 minutes, and yes, this video is going to be almost 15 minutes. Well, it's like 14 and some change, but I flew for a little bit longer than I recorded because, well, I cut off the video right before I landed, I believe. I don't know, I guess when we get there. But this only took about half of the battery in order to fly, so I was happy about that because I had a full charge before I flew, and I'm in the habit now of charging the drone after I get done flying it. That way it's ready again. And yeah, so I took a look around because I wanted to see what I could see, and I went out about 4,000 feet total, and I went in multiple directions. And yeah, I did some zooming and stuff to see if I could see more, but because of the lighting, it was kind of difficult. And I started to notice some different patterns in the trees. Like these trees here, I think are natural, but there are some trees that are in rows, and I'm led to believe that they were replanted. Well, no, I'm not upset that they're replanting trees, and I think that that's a good thing. If they're replanting trees that were torn down for whatever reason, then, you know, that's good for the environment, it's good for us, because trees are that thing that can actually lower greenhouse emissions, because trees turn CO2 into oxygen, so the more trees, the better, and they grow healthy. Well, I got to this clearing here, and I thought that was kind of interesting, even though I don't really know why, because there wasn't a whole lot going on, but I was like, well, it's better than, you know, just endless fields of trees, and I'm out here, so let me check it out. And I didn't go terribly too far, because at the point where I started to lose the connection to the drone, that's when I started bringing it back, because I don't want to lose it 2 miles away from where I'm standing, because that could be a huge problem, because I got to find it, and it's 2 miles away from where I'm standing in woods and marshland, and so I don't want to lose connection with it. So like I said, as I got far enough away where I was starting to lose a little bit of connection, no, I didn't get all the way back, but that's when I started to like turn, and I wasn't heading straight back. I was still checking out the area, and I was like, ooh, there's some water. Is there any gators there? Let me see. Now at this point, I'm about 350 feet in the air, and I don't need to be that high. I mean, clearly you can see pretty damn well from me being that high, but I don't need to be that high, and it takes me a while before I'm like, well, I can bring it down a little bit. And the thing about that really is that it's hard to tell how high other things are when you're above them, in that how close they are. So if I'm 350 feet in the air and I'm sitting there and I'm trying to think about how tall these trees are, they might be 50 feet. But the drone's not perfectly accurate with how high above the ground it is, as I noticed when I was landing it. But yeah, so I find all these water pools, and I'm like, ooh, let me zoom in, see if I can see a gator. Maybe there's one in the bottom of the pond, maybe there's one on the side, I don't know. And I'm not seeing any, so I'm like, well, there's another spot. But I also thought that the sky reflection on these ponds was pretty cool, even though they're all covered in algae, and that's kind of expected for the kind of terrain that you're in there, that it is swamp and marshland, but it does have open water. And yeah, you can see those trees to the right there are like much more organized than the ones that I originally saw. And that's not the only place I noticed it, but you'll notice it, and I'm like, ooh, is that a gator? No, it's just some crap on the water. I'm sure there's all kinds of wildlife teeming in these ponds and all through the forest, but I can't fly the drone through the forest, but I can fly it over it. And it's interesting because when you think Florida, you don't really think this kind of terrain, but this is in the Panhandle. Tallahassee's getting close to Alabama, and I was actually headed toward Alabama, but I was at hours, so I had to take my break, and I figured it was good weather to fly in, and it really was. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's smooth, it's crisp, and no, the lighting isn't ideal, but I'm like, ooh, there's more water. Can I see a gator? And that little pond there seems like a good place to hang out at, but I didn't see any. But see how those trees are in line, and then as we get past that, see that they're straight lines, and then we get here and they're completely randomized, which this is actually something I'm thinking about while I'm there. And then that patch is taller than the other ones, but then there's a patch to the left that are completely in line. Trees don't grow in lines on their own ever, so that they had to be planted, and so that's, you know, what's expected out of that. But since I went that way until I really couldn't anymore, I figured I'd go another way, and here I'm going to cross I-10, and I-10 is actually, well, I'm parked at a rest stop off of I-10, in between, I think it was 219, no, it was 221 and 19 U.S. highways, which it wasn't a bad rest stop. It actually had a decent amount of like information and that kind of stuff, and some rest stops do and other ones don't. Some of them are just truck parking, which is just a parking lot. They don't care about us, and I guess that's fine, because I'm just happy that there are places like that to park, really. And I thought this was actually a really cool place to check out. And then, you know, I see this field here, and man, that could be a football field, or it could be a soccer field or something that's wide open, but it doesn't look like anybody's doing that. And then I'm looking at the road that comes off of the field, and I'm like, well, let me follow that for a little bit and see, you know, what that's about. Maybe it goes somewhere, because the whole thing of what I'm seeing here is there isn't a whole lot. Well, I'm not really complaining that there isn't much, because that means, you know, like this end of Florida would be less populated and less full of people that, you know, tourists and all that kind of stuff, and Florida might not be a bad idea. Plus, Florida just passed a law that said no city in Florida will be a sanctuary city, and I totally support that. And I'm really looking at the laws for these different states now before I buy property, because yes, I'm going to leave New Jersey because I'm sick and tired of New Jersey taking 11% of my paycheck. They took 11% of my paycheck last year when I only made $8,000, and now I make close to that in a month, and they're still taking 11% of it. So I'm going to have to get out of New Jersey, because New Jersey is costly for what? You know, I'm flying the drone in Florida, and right now while I'm recording the audio for this, I'm in Mississippi. And what's New Jersey doing for me? Absolutely nothing. Now, yes, New Jersey did get me my CDL, which is nice, but that was because I was impoverished and they want to take more tax money, and now I'm going to bite them in the ass and leave the state because, well, don't have a wife or kids. You know, it's not like I'm required to be there, and I can still visit family whenever I want, because they own property there, not me. So I'm looking into these states, and it's, I don't know, Florida, Texas, Nevada. And Florida looks pretty good, but I'm going to have to, you know, check out some more in Texas. And Texas is a very interesting state in many ways. And I'm going to have to look into the governing laws in Nevada as well. Water there, no, that's that field. As I'm coming back, I can see that field. And off to the right, you can see that's actually the westbound rest stop, because I'm on the other side. And I fly over that, so you can see it's very similar to the rest stop that I'm at, which I'm like, ooh, is that water? Is there gators in that water? But yeah, it's very similar to the one that I'm at in that what it has. And like I said, these rest stops are fairly involved. They got, you know, a field that you can play in. They got a decent sized building. Yes, the building has bathrooms in it, and then you got truck parking and car parking. And, you know, trucks will use car parking too, if it's open and there's nowhere else, because if we need somewhere to park, we're going to. And I'm looking at those car carriers to see what they got on them, because car carriers are interesting to me, and they kind of always have been. And no, I'm not ready to be driving one yet, but I'm probably not too far from it, because it's not much more involved than what I'm doing, and that's kind of the point. And then as I'm flying out here, that's the rest stop where I'm parked at, and I was looking at the bus and the car that was coming through, because I was like, oh cool, you know, because I'm catching them from another angle. And so I'm coming back, and you can see that my side is much more populated than the other side. And I'm looking at that pond because it looks so three-dimensional from above. Like, the water's clear enough where you can see the algae in layers, which is really kind of interesting to me for the most part. I mean, I may be easily amused, but I kind of think that looks cool, and I'm gonna have to like check that out in other areas, places where I'm more familiar, to see, you know, what that's like, because it looks pretty damn cool. And at this point I'm like, well, let me get closer to it, right? So I'm like, I'll bring it down over that pond, and then I'll fly around to land it. And that's what I'm getting to, is the flying around to land it. And I'm just also trying to make eye contact with the drone and see where I'm at in accordance to where it's at. And as I get closer to this pond, I start thinking that I'm not going to see anything else in it, you know, and that's kind of dissatisfying, which, you know, I'm still checking out the sides of it. And then I think I bring it around and I circle around my truck, and that's where I start noticing the height thing, because I'm like right above where the truck is, and it's telling me I'm 50 feet in the air, and I'm like, well, my truck's not 50 feet tall, it's only 13 and a half foot tall. I'm maybe 20 feet up, and no, 20 feet isn't gonna bother me. But if another truck were to fly underneath the drone, it would bother the drone because of the amount of air that trucks move. And so that's, you know, now I'm looking at my truck. It is what it is. It kind of looks like a toy from there, right? It looks so tiny and small. And then there's me. I'm standing in front of the truck, and the truck is running because the air conditioning's running, because it's like 100 degrees outside, and the truck is loud as hell. So like me, I'm just thinking about that. But yeah, I got my lights on, and more or less I'm looking at it, because, you know, it's a thing that you guys have to look at quite often, much more often than you ever saw my van, I think. But part of it is because in order to fly, I don't walk too far away from the truck, because the truck is in an open lot at this point. And you can see how stupid it looks on top. Well, I mean, I probably look at the top of my truck more than most other people look at the tops of theirs. But at least that trailer was nice and it was in good shape. And at this point, I'm going to tell you, if you enjoyed this and you want to see my other drone flights, you can go ahead and check out that video there. Or if you want to see what I'm like when I'm angry, you can go ahead and check out that video there. As always, guys, I want to thank you for watching. I wouldn't do this without you. And I'll see all my friends in my next video.